Good afternoon. My name is Oreen Chowdhury, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Committee of the Whole. I'm going to call our regular meeting for Tuesday, October 29th. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of their rate of speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll to verify the presence of a quorum.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Wansley.
Present.
Greenville.
Present.
Vita.
Present.
Ellison is absent. Osman is absent. Cashman.
Present.
Jenkins.
Present.
Chugtai. Present. Koski.
Present.
Palmazano.
Present.
Chavez.
Present.
And Vice Chair Chowdhury.
Present. Let the record reflect we have a quorum. And I'll also recognize that Councilmember Osman has joined us in this meeting. I'll remind members that we are using speaker management, so please plan on using that for this meeting. Today, we have 7 items on the agenda in addition to our reports of committees that have met this cycle. Item number 4 is from our settlement agreement and consent decree oversight subcommittee, and I will turn the meeting over to President Payne as the chair of that committee for that portion of the meeting. Items 1 through 3 are on the consent agenda. Item number 1 is a gift acceptance from the American Public Health Association for registration fees for Councilmember Wansley. Item number 2 is confirming the 2025 calendar of regular meetings for the City Council and its committees, as well as authorizing the city clerk to post the confirmed 2025 calendar and incorporate these changes as necessary. Item number 3 is approving rules for the Community Commission on Police Oversight. Is there any discussion on these items? Okay. I'll also recognize that Councilmember Ellison has joined the meeting. Seeing no discussion, I'll move. Oh, thank you. Apologies, members. I'll recognize Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair Chowdhury. Sorry, I was a little late on that. Can any member actually fill me in a little bit on what the CCPO rules update seeks to do?
I'll recognize Clerk Casey Carl.
Thanks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councilmember Cashman, as explained previously, the CCPO created by the council is required to adopt and operate under bylaws and rules that are approved by the mayor and the council. You'll recall that a few cycles ago, the bylaws came before this body and were approved. This is the rules. The bylaws provide additional structure beyond what was provided in the council's enabling legislation, which creates the CCPO. The rules, much like council rules, prescribe how meetings of the CCPO and its committees will operate.
Okay, thanks so much.
All right, thank you. I'll next recognize Councilmember Wansley.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury. I also had a question related to the CCPO rules.
Great, we'll invite up Clerk Carl. Councilmember.
Thank you. Clerk Carl, could you share what the process of recourse is if a member violates either the bylaws that have been previously approved or the rules once they are approved?
Through the chair, Councilmember Wansley, ultimately all the members of all of our boards and commissions where a law does not otherwise apply serve at the pleasure of the appointing authority. So the appointing authority is the mayor and the council. And unrelated to the CCPO bylaws or rules, I would point out that under board and commission reforms, which as we're going to report on in a minute, adopted by this council, there is a new participant agreement that sets forward the city's expected behaviors for service of all members of boards and commissions. And so if there were a violation, to use that phrase, of those participant agreements, of bylaws, of rules, of city policies, of the code of ethics, things that apply uniformly to boards and commissions, it would be a factor that could be considered by the appointing authority, the mayor and council, to unappoint a member of any board or commission.
Okay, so that's basically the ultimate recourse of action, is that you could be unappointed from your position if you're found to be in violation of those.
Through the chair, I believe that is the ultimate potential consequence of violating the city's expectations, both in terms of policies that apply to boards and commissions, but also a step down from that, the adopted bylaws and rules, which have a flavor of policy to them because they are confirmed or ratified by this body.
Okay, thank you. This is, is there anything that absolutely feels like the ultimate escalatory action? There's nothing beforehand. The reason why I'm asking is I've been alerted of maybe some hostile dynamics that's happening amongst commissioners in terms of related to decorum and code of conduct of respect and professionalism amongst themselves, or that is being not extended to every commissioner. So one, to get a sense of if there's any level of mediation or things of that nature before getting to the level of essentially unappointing a commissioner. But it sounds like maybe that might not be the case outside of if the CCPO commission or chairs decided to mediate, but there's no formal process around that.
Madam Chair and Councilmember Wansley, thank you for the question. No, that's not true. There are other options before an unappointment would be necessary. That is an ultimate consequence to unappoint someone. And without getting into specifics or personalities involved, I would say that yes, much like many boards or even just groups that get together, there's, forming and norming and storming. And there are opportunities for the chair to intervene. There are opportunities for professional staff to intervene. There are opportunities for mediation and things of that nature. And so there are, I think, opportunities available for us as a city to intervene at an appropriate level to ensure that the work of all of our boards and commissions moves forward in the ways that we, meaning the council, would expect of boards and commissions. And so with this particular board, I also am aware of issues that are issues of decorum or respect, I will say, between members. And we have had some initial conversations and plan to pursue other opportunities for level setting expectations around performance. One of the things that hasn't been rolled out to the CCPO or the Community Commission on Police Oversight is that participant agreement. And so one of the things that the chair has asked me to do is bring back the participant agreement and talk about that at their November meeting.
That's good to know. And I think that was my original question of what other avenues for corrections exist before getting to that, I would say again, escalatory action. Is this documented anywhere in the bylaws in terms of the process or options that you just laid out?
Through the chair, let me just clarify. Are you asking, are there documented processes for how boards would pursue means of addressing conduct or conflict by the members?
Yes.
The answer to that, Councilmember Wansley, is no. The bylaws don't address that. Those would be addressed through our reforms that apply to all boards and commissions. So is it documented? Yes. Is it in this particular board's bylaws? No. It would be in our ordinance. It would be in our policies. It would be in the code of ethics. It would be in the participant agreement.
Okay. Well, I'll make sure to follow. Again, I want to make sure at least the commissioners are aware of the avenues that they have access to hopefully reinstate the norms around respect and professionalism in that space. And if it's not documented in the bylaws, which I can imagine that's where one will look, or the participant agreements that they assign, for it to be readily available and accessible to them so that they could bring it to the attention of either us as appointees, staff, or the chairs. So if there's a way to get that information disseminated to the commissioners, that would be great.
I hope that will be a good response, that it is on the plans to talk about at their November meeting as a body.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members that want to get in queue for discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll move approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries. Item number 4 is a part of our settlement agreement and consent decree oversight subcommittee. So now I will turn the meeting over to President Payne as the chair of that subcommittee.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury. But we have one item before us. Before we take that item up, I would actually like to add a discussion item to our agenda. If there's no objection, I want us to have a little bit of a conversation about how we should move forward in light of some of the events that happened last weekend around the shooting of Mr. Maturi. Is there any objection to adding that as a discussion item after we take up our consent? Okay. So let's take care of this consent item first. This item is a contract with Minnesota Intervention Training, MNCIT, for services relating to providing the MPD's academy classes with crisis intervention training and a yearly refresher to both the MPD and city dispatch staff. Staff is available if there are any questions on this item. Seeing none, I'll move approval of this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and that motion carries. Next, I want to take up this discussion item, and I'll just say, I think that we need to, in this new era of MPD with a MDHR settlement agreement and an impending consent decree, we need to have a much more leaned-in, transparent conversation around how we do policing in Minneapolis. And I think we need to be able to confront when we're doing things correctly and incorrectly. And I think we need to do that with courage, and we need to do that with urgency around some of these matters. And I think it's going to be really important for us to learn lessons as we move forward so that we can have a healthy department. And I think this is one of those opportunities where I would like to work with colleagues on city council, but also with the administration, and what is the best path forward for, whether it's an independent after action report and an internal investigation, or some type of approach that will help us understand what mistakes were made, how could we work better in the future. And I'm seeing Councilmember Wansley in queue.
Thank you, President Payne. This conversation is really timely considering the item that we approved, which is extending training to new cadets in MPD around how to do crisis intervention, specifically those experiencing disabilities and mental health disorders. And what we saw in this case, or what we're being told, is that 8 months of inaction by our police department was driven largely by challenges in how MPD assess approaching incidents involving residents who are experiencing mental health crises. And I hope that this training also takes into consideration the racial dynamics, especially in thinking of the life and memory of Tekla Somberg, who was also a young black man living in Seward, who was shot and killed, I believe, almost a year ago, while also experiencing a mental health crisis. And that level of grace that was extended to the perpetrator of racialized violence against Davis Maturi did not seem to be extended to Tekla. And I really hope that that is not the case going forward, especially as we're trying to get in full compliance with the MDHR legal settlements. I also want to name agreement with what you've raised, and it seems like there's shared agreement across the board, even with the mayor, saying that the city absolutely failed Mr. Maturi in this case, and that we should be examining the ways in which that failure was allowed and permitted to happen. And I am absolutely interested in knowing how in this body we can also pursue an after-action review, knowing that whatever post-incident review that the mayor's or administration's office might conduct, it's not clear if that report will come back to this body, but I do know in the past when this body has authorized after-action reports through independent evaluators, that information has been able to come forward to us and has given us recommendations on how to guide policy and funding decisions and how we relate to the administration as they are the overseeing body of the Minneapolis police. But I just want to also reiterate this weekend was hard on a multitude of fronts, and seeing another Black man not be delivered the justice that they deserved, and to see our police department or leadership initially blame said the victim for the cause of their near-death experience. It was disheartening to hear that our actions amongst this body to bring attention to 8 months of inaction was labeled as political. And if serving Black residents and leveraging every tool in our toolkit as elected officials to bring awareness to when Black lives are not being treated of value is political, then I'm political every step of the way. So I really hope that we take this as another opportunity to reevaluate the status of our police department, reevaluate if we've actually made as much progress that we're often told in press conferences. And I really do look forward to us pursuing an after-action review so that we can have concrete details and recommendations to guide us on how to not replicate this grave injustice again.
Councilmember Rainville.
Thank you. So I think we can't rush to judgment here until we have all the facts. And to equate the shooting with the Textura shooting, as I recall, he was shooting through the wall at a young mother and children prior to his unfortunate death. So let's all take a deep breath and wait to see how this after-action report comes out from the mayor. And I want to remind this body that Jamal Mitchell also was killed trying to help out. So you have to understand how that influences our police department. We just buried a police officer with a violent situation. And let's have some grace and dignity towards our police department in the time being. Thank you.
Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Council President Payne. I just wanted to add, as a person who has been engaged with this process over the past 8 months, that I think it's an inaccurate statement to say that there was no action from the police department. It just, the actions that the police department were taking did not result in an arrest of the perpetrator, Mr. Sawcheck, which I was advocating for. There are several warrants for Mr. Sawcheck's arrest. So there was actions being taken. However, those actions did not result in the desired outcome, which was to arrest the perpetrator. I'm glad that this training is happening so that our police department can more effectively deal with crisis situations, etc. I think it is absolutely wrong to continuously politicize this tragic event that Mr. Maturi suffered at the hands of his neighbor. I'm happy that the police were able to arrest Mr. Sawcheck over the weekend, and we need to see this after-action report and deal with the findings as they come out. Thank you, Mr. President.
Councilmember Wansley.
Yeah, thank you, President Payne. I do want to offer some clarity as someone who had the opportunity to look at the correspondence between Mr. Maturi and also Councilmember Jenkins' office and MPD leadership, where on numerous occasions since February, and to clarify, you are absolutely right. Action was taken. Action was taken by Mr. Maturi. Action was taken by his wife and family. It was taken by the Hennepin County Attorney's Office. It was taken by Councilmember Jenkins in bringing attention to the fact that this man for several months was essentially harassed, completely stressed out, assaulted, and made every incident very clear to police leadership, asked for help on a multitude of occasions, and became so bogged down with hopelessness that he might actually end his life, that in one of his correspondence, he did share the question of, am I not human? And I don't need an after action report to affirm that there was a grave denial of justice by our law enforcement agency, and it's okay to name that. And I'm glad that Chief O'Hara eventually named that and apologized as well on behalf of what was not delivered for Mr. Maturi in this incident for almost a year now. So for council members who haven't had the opportunity to read that very traumatizing thread, I really encourage you to understand that it's going to have to take a lot more of work. And then clearly 2 consent decrees is not sufficient. Trainings are not sufficient. A $9 million police contract salary is not sufficient. And really correcting this dynamic of racism that continues to be expressed within our local police department. So I really encourage you all to check that out. And I really am hopeful that Mr. Maturi, at the end of the day, is able to find some inkling of traditional justice with the proceeding of the trial now that the perpetrator has been arrested. And I hope his family is able to find some level of restoration and maybe peace as he embarks on a long-lasting recovery period. So I at least want to offer that clarification.
Councilmember Vita.
Thank you. There were 2 things happening over the weekend that were at the forefront of folks' minds, and one of them was the 2 black men that were murdered inside of one of the camps over the weekend. And so for me, I'm really interested in how we get some after action reports, or just like how do we have conversations about, when these shootings happen in these camps, what the police are doing before and after. For me, I would have loved to see some type of sweep to get weapons out of the camps. I mean, there's shootings happening. There's black men that I think 3 people died over the weekend in 2 different camps. So I appreciate this conversation about this specific issue, but I would love for us to start having some conversations about the shootings and the murders that are happening to black and brown people in these encampments. And I had a conversation with the chief over the weekend about what happens after a big shooting happens. And, everyone sees this on the news. I haven't heard folks talking about it at this level of, the plan or the after action or any action on what this looks like. So I would love, I don't know if we incorporate it in this conversation or if I bring up something different or like how we do it, but I'm really open to us having conversations about some sort of after action reports when these shootings happen, if that means like a camp gets closed down immediately or there's some type of weapons and drug sweep that happens when these type of crimes happen in these camps, because people want answers about what this council is doing on that issue also.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, President Payne. Glad we're having the discussion about Mr. Maturi. And since the discussion around the shootings within the encampments is brought up, I'll just note like one of the shootings took place in my ward, and it was a deeply tragic event. For multiple weeks, we in the Ward 12 office had been connecting with constituents. Even just a few days before this occurred, we had a community meeting with the 55-plus senior community that was right there, getting a list of their accounts. There was a mixed viewpoint and sharing of feelings and experience. One for compassion for those who are unhoused, paired with feelings of their own personal safety in the area. And I'll just say this was on a city-owned parcel, and we had all of the jurisdiction to take action and prevent what happened. And our office had been asking for weeks to get a briefing, to get information, to know a plan, to figure out how we can coordinate services with the county, with other service providers. And we went about 17 days from that request from when the shooting happened. And that was unfortunate because we see instances where maybe something's occurring on private property and it makes it more difficult, but this was city-owned land. And it just indicates to me that we need a larger systemic approach when it comes to safety, livability, unsheltered homelessness. I think there's just a practicality and we can't whack-a-mole around encampments and expect this problem to change. There's other policy solutions I'm sure we'll discuss in coming months. I'll note, I agree, there should be some reporting that's done around public safety, and I'm grateful that we passed the encampment reporting ordinance that was inclusive of reports related to investigations, 911, 311 calls. That's precisely why we put it in there, so we can get a clear understanding and narrative of why this is occurring. And it was a hard weekend for me in that vein of things, and also considering what actions we take as a city. All I wanted to say in terms of the case of Mr. Mattori is I'm glad that we're having this discussion together. I am troubled by this current dialogue that has existed outside of this chamber of we shouldn't be uplifting and saying and calling out when something is a problem when we've tried everything possible. Politics is quite literally engaging in governance and having a discussion about those affairs. The minute that we engage in a discussion with one another, our constituents, it becomes inherently political. The minute that one individual or a group of people has more power or less power than one another, it becomes political. What we need to be cautious of is stomping out our dialogue and our conversation to getting to solutions. And so saying we shouldn't be politicizing this, what I actually hear is we shouldn't be talking about it, and that's incorrect. We should absolutely be talking about it. We should absolutely be saying these are systemic issues. We should be saying, yes, fear of prosecution is a real thing. Fear of harm is a real thing, but that can't keep us from doing the job that we're tasked to do. That can't keep the police department from doing the job that they're tasked to do. And I'm taking phone calls and emails from my constituents, and that's what they're asking. They're saying, this was so egregious. Why is the answer to it, we couldn't have taken action? What are the answers here? They want us to discuss this. They want this to come into the public realm because this is the services that they count on. This is the services that they pay for. This is the city that they're invested in, and they want to see us come out on the other side where things are actually working for Black and brown residents and all residents, for residents who have more power or less power than one another. I'm glad to see that the mayor has moved on doing an investigation. I share in some of the sentiments of my other colleagues. I think it's wise for us to do an independent investigation. I think it is wise. I think it engenders trust from our constituents and in each other and getting objective facts. And I feel like no matter how much we shift it around, if the investigation is internal, there's inherent biases. So that's what I'm supportive of, and I'm really glad that we're talking about it because it was a tough weekend for us. I know particularly tough for the council member who represents the 8th, Councilmember Jenkins, and so I'm glad we could have this conversation with one another because we needed it.
Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, President Payne. Councilmember Chowdhury's absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with us getting into the conversation. I actually didn't know about this case until the letter that Councilmember Jenkins and other colleagues on the council sent to MPD leadership and the mayor. And the second I read that, I was absolutely enraged. And, I think many of us shared that feeling. As well as residents. And, my sister lives on the same block as the perpetrator and Mr. Maturi in the 8th Ward. And so my frame on this, and I had a similar experience in my ward late last year, was about the process by which they actually were able to arrest Mr. Stachek and how they got him out of the building eventually. I think I'm really glad that they were able to get him to come out of the building alive. And it's the same sort of scenario that happened last year in my ward when Robert Scafty was murdered, and the police and the SWAT team were able to coax the perpetrator out of the building eventually and get him out alive. But my concern here is the victim services of all of the neighbors on the block who were up all night hearing the blowhorn, hearing that there was going to be gas released, seeing the destruction of the property in order to get him out of the building. And people like my sister, or people like my neighbors in Loring Park who lived in the same building as the perpetrator, it's a 200-person tower, they're all wanting facts, and they're all traumatized by what happened and wanting to be kept in the loop, and they deserve that in order to have stronger community relations between our police department, our entire public safety system, and our residences. So I just hope that part of victim services and the approach that they took to get the perpetrator out of the building will be detailed in the report.
Councilmember Ellison.
Thank you. I wasn't going to say anything, but I do think it's important that we hold this line on being able to discuss when things aren't functioning well in the city in general. I think it's really important. You can zoom in every situation and look at the specifics and hash out the specifics, but when you zoom out, what people are telling me, what a lot of residents are telling me, is MPD always seems to find a way to de-escalate with a white suspect, and when the suspect is black, it's killing. It's a killing. The Tekle Sundberg situation needed an intervention, but he was killed. Did he need to be killed? He didn't shoot anyone. I get that he shot through a wall. Absolutely, the situation needed an intervention. Here we have somebody who did shoot someone, and he's sitting in his home, and I don't know that that's necessarily. I don't find it acceptable. And people are noticing other trends, right? There was a lack of intervention on the St. Anne's situation. The residents were called liars when they talked about the attack that they faced by the department. And so, is that to say that the department doesn't need support, that the department is 100% wrong all of the time? By no means, no, that's not what that's saying. But it is noticing a trend that black victims feel like they are not getting the kind of support, and in a very obvious way. If the department feels like that's not a fair characterization, you got to go out, you got to prove that to the community. You got to prove that to us. Because if we zoom out and that's what it looks like, then we absolutely have to be able to call a spade, right? That's what we're discussing here. And so, and in every step of the way, it feels like when we have these conversations, and this isn't even a reflection of anyone on this dais, but it feels like, to Councilmember Chowdhury's point, the very notion that a conversation is being had is the thing that gets criticized, right? And so, if council members take issue with how this happened, they're politicizing it, and they're not in a position to say what should and shouldn't happen. That's ridiculous. We all have eyes. We all can observe what is and isn't happening. And so, to me, we've got to be able to have conversations about addressing encampments. That was brought up, right? But when we do, it's, you either want encampments or you don't want them. The conversation's not that simple, but for political reasons, it gets boiled down to that. If you're not satisfied with this situation, it's, you wanted the police to go in guns blazing, was the term that was used. Absurd. It's silly, right? And so And so I'll join my colleagues in saying, like, we've got to be able to have these conversations without them getting distilled into the most convenient talking point, right? Because at the end of the day, I think the thing that bothers me the most about it is not the chirping back and forth between electeds, although that can get tiresome for community members. We all know that. But to me, I think the most annoying thing about it is that we don't get to the substance of what most needs to happen in order to serve people. It's all about tone, and it's all about how we're approaching one another. So I just wanted to jump in and say that I don't want to see I would not view it acceptable. And I know my constituents wouldn't view it acceptable if I faced criticism and I got really thin skin about it and defensive about it. They would not see that as acceptable. And I don't want to see the mayor get thin skin. We often can have frank conversations. He's welcome to push back on me as well, publicly, privately, whatever we can. But we shouldn't go out there and be thin skinned about it. I don't want to see a chief be thin skinned either. Take the critique and improve. And if the trends that people are saying they're seeing are not real, prove it. Show the community. And I think that's really important for us to say.
Councilmember Koski.
Thank you, President Payne. I think grounding us back to, part of the discussion here around what we're going to do next as a body. The assault, harassment, stalking, and shooting of Davis Maturi highlighted a number of troubling trends in our city, including our inability to provide help and intervention to residents in need and protect our residents from harm. Our city deserves safety and a safety system that responds swiftly and decisively to prevent harm. And I believe we owe it to our community to fully dive into and come to understand the factors that allowed this to occur and to ensure that no resident's plea for safety goes unanswered again. We need to restore trust in our city's public safety system, and accountability is a crucial part in our ability to do that. An internal investigation is a step forward, but it's not enough. Mr. Maturi's trust in our public safety system is broken. Public trust in our public safety system is broken. And while we've been working to rebuild that, we're not there yet. In order for Mr. Maturi and our public to be able to trust an investigation and report, it needs to be done by a body or an organization that they trust. And then I'll end on this. I agree that the city's gun violence epidemic and its many victims and survivors is an issue this body should absolutely be prioritizing, and we should absolutely be having further discussions regarding this. But I think it's important that we don't start a trauma competition with these victims and survivors' stories. These are real people's lives. These are real people's stories. And we don't need to pit them against each other. It's not helpful, it's not productive, and it's not fair to them. We have to have the ability to have these conversations about these stories, and we have to be able to do it in a respectful and compassionate way.
Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just came back into conversation because I think it's worth noting that across the street right now, the public hearing for Mr. Sawchuk is happening. And so it's grounding us in the reality that we have our work cut out for us. There's going to be more news, there's going to be more questions, and as leaders in this city, not in a vacuum as a council, but with the police department, with the city attorneys, with the mayor's office, with all of the departments that are part of this, we're going to need to come together and figure out some of this work, because that's what our constituents are going to be expecting us to deliver on. And we're going to continue to be in the public eye about it.
Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's great for us to have conversations about these things. I also think it's extremely premature for a council member to say, if you bring up an issue that your constituents are, that's at the forefront of what they want to see happen, is pitting against each other. That's not what it is at all. If I, as a council member, bring up an issue that is different, than somebody else. It's not that we can't work on both of them. I'm just sharing what my constituents are concerned about. And so I represent a very different part of this city. And what people reach out to me about is not necessarily what people care about in Ward 11. So, I think the bigger issue here is not getting defensive if you're going to say in the same breath that you want to have a conversation about anything, yet embrace the idea of having multiple conversations, because public safety is extremely complex, and the person living next door to you has a very different public safety concern sometimes than you do way over in Ward 11. So my idea for bringing up the conversation around encampments is about this. The conversation was brought up, the public safety conversation. Let's talk about it all. As I started out with saying, there was a couple things going on this weekend in the city. And yes, people did call me about the shooting in Councilmember Jenkins' ward. And I personally had conversations with Councilmember Jenkins months ago, throughout the year about this. Friendly conversation, sharing, talking. But I hadn't heard anything about it until the letter went out. I got lots of engagement over the weekend because council members retweeted a letter that other council members, I had no idea what was going on until someone reached out to me and said, hey, did you see this tweet? What is this about? I don't know. But council members put out statements, yet they get up here and say, let's hold hands and work together on it. And all council members didn't know about the letter. I mean, I didn't know anything about the letter until somebody sent me the tweet. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have conversations. What I'm saying is, let's not play the game of, we're going to say we should have conversations, but we're really not going to have the conversations. We're going to click up and do what we want to do, and then we're going to get on the dais after the fact and say, let's have conversations. Let's work on this together. That's how it gets politicized. When people take the approach of division to make a point, and now we want to act like we're all together. We weren't together when the letter got signed. We weren't together when the tweets went out. Councilmember Jenkins has been talking to me about this all year long, at basketball games, at whatever we're doing in our personal time, so much so where she's like, okay, let me stop talking about this. So I was aware of what's been going on. I've been aware that she's been trying to get solutions. What I was not aware of is that the council was taking this on and writing letters and tweeting about it. So if we're going to say we're together, if we're not going to politicize things, if we're going to work on things, let's work on all the things that our community is affected by. No, you don't have to be the champion on after action reports at encampments, or the epidemic that is crushing some communities around gun violence. You don't have to be a champion on it. But if you want me to listen to what you want to do, you should listen to what I want to do too. And not politicize it by creating more division and saying we're pitting things against each other. People are listening to these meetings. There are no pitting of against each other. I'm just saying what is important to the community that I represent. And if you want to talk about what's important to Ward 11, then do so.
I'm going to call on Councilmember Palmisano, and I'll just remind folks, let's not ascribe motives to people.
Mr. Chair, I hesitate just to allow what Councilmember Vita said to be the last word here. I'll be really brief. I appreciate this conversation, and I agree there's a very important dialogue to be had about what happened and how we can improve going forward. I absolutely want to be part of that conversation, but I have no interest in an us versus them dynamic or manufacturing one where it doesn't exist, or making statements on social media that only fan the flames of division without offering your solutions. That's not productive. Politics are inevitably a part of this conversation, but we must have these conversations in a way that are productive and not just politically expedient.
Vice President Chugtai.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Really appreciate this discussion among colleagues. the two things I just wanted to add are one, wanted to uplift the incredible amount of work that Councilmember Jenkins and the Ward 8 team have done over a year to support their constituent in trying to achieve some justice. I know it's been a really difficult journey, and I just really appreciate all of your work. And then the second piece I wanted to, add to the discussion is, I am supportive of an independent investigation, an independent after-action review, as we have done in the past, to really understand the patterns, the practices that led us to this place, and see what it looks like for us to move forward to prevent such a thing from happening to another resident again. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, colleagues. It's not hyperbole to say this conversation is life and death. I mean, these are the stakes of the events that we're talking about. It was a really hard weekend for our city. And I've been a champion of saying we need to have a more mature conversation about public safety in Minneapolis. We need to not have it be broken down into overly simplified binaries that can be strawmanned and told to be how, irresponsible or silly you are for having this obviously false belief. I mean, this was a very complicated series of events that led up to the shooting of Mr. Maturi. Homelessness as a general topic is a very complicated topic, and there's not going to be a simple, reductive answer to any of these challenges. And the only way that we're going to be able to actually come up with solutions to these challenges that are so complex in nature is to have these types of fulsome conversations. So I'm just really wanted to express gratitude to my colleagues for being able to engage in such a productive conversation. And with that, I will return the chair back to Councilmember Chowdhury.
Thank you, President Payne. Members, we will now move to our discussion items. First up, we have a second status report about the implementation of administrative policy reforms, or police reforms. I think it's supposed to be policy. Policy for the city's appointed boards and commissions. I will ask Casey Carl, City Clerk, to come up and present that for us. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. As noted, my name is Casey Carl. I have the privilege of serving as the clerk of the City of Minneapolis. And as indicated, I am here to provide a second report on the implementation of our reforms that were enacted by council and mayor for the city's appointed boards and commissions. Today's presentation will summarize our accomplishments to date. It will preview the work that is ongoing and anticipated to be completed before the end of the year, and then identify the work that will carry forward into 2025 and beyond. We'll begin by highlighting the work accomplished since our report in July. This slide summarizes work completed thus far. It builds on the report we presented to the committee on July 16. Although the list appears fairly short, I can assure you that it represents a tremendous lift from our very small team in the clerk's office in addressing enterprise-wide reforms that affect the bulk of our city's appointed boards and commissions. And those are the boards and commissions that are classified in tiers 3 and 4. First, we have successfully classified all of our existing bodies according to the system adopted by the council and mayor. As you know, there are 5 tiers. Tiers 1 and 2 are the independent and quasi-independent bodies. They include bodies that are created as a result of state law, pursuant to city charter, or from major city policies underneath enabling legislation. These bodies are either wholly independent of the city council or have a significant degree of latitude from the council in performing their delegated duties. Most of the adopted reforms do not impact those bodies in this first phase of implementation. We have consistently said that reforms may be applied to some of those bodies in a future phase. However, it's likely beyond 2025 and therefore not on our radar at the current time. As I reported to the committee on July 16th, of the city's total number of appointed boards and commissions, 18 are classified as Tier 3 advisory bodies. That's roughly 38% of all of the city's boards and commissions. All of the adopted reforms apply to these bodies. Working with Assistant City Attorney Andrea Neff, we've prepared a template resolution to establish Tier 3 and Tier 4 bodies. Using that template resolution, we've completed initial drafts of resolutions to reestablish in a consistent manner all of our 18 Tier 3 advisory bodies. We also have initiated consultations with the departments that support those bodies just this week. And we anticipate bringing forward the first of several resolutions to reestablish those Tier 3 advisory bodies before the end of this year. We also finalized a standard set of board and commission bylaws and rules for use by Tier 3 and Tier 4 bodies, which were approved by Council in July. The enabling legislation requires that the city clerk provide those standard bylaws and rules to all of the boards and commissions that are affected in order to impose a degree of uniformity and predictability across the various boards and commissions. This standardization is expected to help policymakers, our board and commission members, our staff, and the public better access and track the work of our myriad boards, commissions, committees, working groups, and special service districts. Finally, in conjunction with the City Attorney's Office, we completed the ABC Participant Agreement, which I mentioned a moment ago, which helps to identify the expected standards of conduct for all individuals appointed to a city board or commission. We will begin implementing the new agreement following the reauthorization of each of the Tier 3 bodies with new resolutions. So I've discussed what's been accomplished thus far. Next, I'll summarize in a series of slides the work that's ongoing. So this is the first of two slides highlighting the work underway with implementation. As noted, we've completed the initial drafts of all of our resolutions to reestablish our existing Tier 3 bodies. And we've begun the process of consulting with departments about their input on any potential improvements to those draft resolutions. We anticipate bringing forward for your consideration and final action many of those resolutions before the end of this year. When we do come forward, it is our goal to have a final recommendation in the form of an authorizing resolution to reestablish the Tier 3 body together with the standard bylaws and the rules. So that means there would be a set package for each Tier 3 body. We'd have the authorizing resolution to reestablish that body according to the new standards that we adopted, as well as the standardized bylaws and rules. We're finalizing the first draft of an ABC operations manual that contains all of our operating policies and procedures applicable to boards and commissions. Those policies and procedures are to be administered by the Office of City Clerk or by the City Clerk as Executive Secretary of all Tier 3 and Tier 4 bodies, and to any other newly created bodies that are impacted by these reforms. That would include any new Tier 2 body created since July 31st of this year. We hope to have that operations manual completed and in place before the end of this year. In order to provide a more comprehensive support for all of our boards and commissions, the project team is also developing an ABC, or Appointed Board and Commission calendar, that proactively identifies and tracks all of the activities that boards and commissions do each year and with their supporting departments. This will help us to better plan and organize for recurring activities related to boards and commissions each year, such as the regular open appointments cycles, the timetabling of mandated annual reports and work plans, and similar matters. Our ABC project team, in collaboration with the clerk's information technology and design team, is also working to design new modules for our boards and commissions in the Legislative Information Management System, known as LIMS. We're planning to leverage technology to work smarter, not just harder. So these new modules will support an enterprise-wide recruitment, nomination, and appointment process, as well as tracking the mandated enterprise-wide orientation program, which will include certain required trainings, including the city's ethics training and securing a signed oath of office and participant agreement from each individual that's appointed to a city board or commission. Here again, we're also exploring the potential to leverage technology to deliver this enterprise orientation program through technology instead of always having to look at in-person trainings. We're reviewing the existing orientation program for improved content, and we're identifying how best to deliver that training on both planned annual bases as well as on demand between those regular appointment cycles. Speaking of appointment cycles, we are considering the benefit of potentially merging what is currently the biannual appointment process in fall and spring cycles into a single annual appointment cycle that would have all appointments to all boards and commissions made on a regular recurring basis in March. We would still, of course, accommodate appointments to fill unanticipated vacancies beyond that standard cycle. But we think there are potential benefits to consolidating those two appointment cycles into one each year so that we can invest as much of our limited resources as an entire enterprise and maximize our focus on outreach, engagement, and related activities to improve our recruitment. No final decisions have been made yet, and we would, of course, return to the council in future with recommendations on that point. Finally, we are in the process of developing templates for new work plans and annual reports that are required of all of our Tier 3 and Tier 4 bodies. We anticipate bringing those forward in 2025 after reestablishing the existing Tier 3 bodies. The clerk's office continues to coordinate monthly meetings with our ABC staff liaisons. These liaisons are staffers within the various departments in the administration who are assigned the responsibility for supporting specific boards and commissions. These monthly meetings allow us to focus on shared issues and concerns, to provide updates about board and commission policies and similar matters. And while we anticipate that the ABC Operations Manual will be a helpful resource to our board and commission members, we're also designing the content to support our staff liaisons as they perform their responsibilities in supporting the city's boards and commissions. The next 5 slides provide some additional details about some of the major scopes of work that are in process right now. These reforms are applicable to all of our Tier 3 advisory bodies and to our Tier 4 work groups and to any newly created Tier 2 bodies. Under the ordinance, the clerk is required to classify all boards and commissions. As already noted, we have done that in July when we submitted the list of boards and commissions that exist and their classification in the tier system. Going forward, any new board or commission will be classified by tier as part of its enabling legislation. The ordinance also requires that the clerk evaluate any proposal for a new board or commission prior to formal action on that proposal. This is to ensure that the city doesn't create new appointed bodies that aren't necessary. The preference is to see if there are existing bodies where the delegated jurisdiction could be expanded or adjusted to accommodate new scopes of work rather than create whole new appointed bodies. In reflecting that policy preference, the clerk's office also will partner with council members to ensure that the delegated terms of reference and scopes of duty for any new board or commission are broad enough so that they don't create boards that don't have a long life to them. This preference also reflects the reality that appointed boards and commissions do have an impact on the enterprise, both in terms of its operations, but also its budget. For that reason, the clerk's evaluation is required to address the anticipated operational and financial impact of any proposal for a new appointed body. I'm pleased to note in that regard that the clerk's office recently produced a new guide to creating a new appointed board or commission. The guide offers step-by-step instructions for elected officials on how to propose the creation of a new board or commission. The ordinance provides that Tier 3 and Tier 4 boards and commissions also must provide work plans and annual reports. These reports are intended to help align the work of our appointed bodies with the city's goals and objectives and to ensure congruity between them. In addition, these work plans and reports will help to amplify the accomplishments of our boards and commissions so that the public at large is better aware of their work and how it impacts and ties into the work of the city as a whole. The clerk's office is developing templates for both the work plans and annual reports, and we anticipate collaborating with staff liaisons to bring forward those first reports next year. The goal will be to have all work plans and reports submitted to the clerk's office. The clerk's office will then compile those into a single report to be received and filed by this committee, which closes information loops with policymakers and the public and ensures that greater awareness of the work of boards and commissions. The requirement for work plans and annual reports does not apply to Tier 1 or Tier 2 bodies at the current time. However, this is something that we'd be interested in pursuing in a future phase of reforms. One of the more controversial or sensitive reforms that was included in the ordinance is the requirement that city boards and commissions ensure their meetings are open and accessible to the public. This includes a requirement that meetings be conducted in facilities or spaces that are owned or leased by the city and which are compliant with the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The clerk's office is including very specific guidance about this topic in our draft operations manual. Pending the completion of that manual, my team is also developing a list of all existing facilities that would qualify as meeting locations for board and commission meetings under this ordinance. We're also continuing to partner with city departments to identify and equip new spaces that could serve as places for board and commission meetings. The clerk's office continues to monitor board and commission meetings. We send weekly email reminders to all staff liaisons to ensure that meeting agendas are posted for public access in LIMS no later than 2 business days in advance of the meetings, and that marked agendas showing all of the actions taken and summarizing those meetings are posted following the meeting. We also work closely with staff liaisons to monitor and to maintain current membership rosters for all of our boards and commissions. Finally, as noted on this slide, the clerk's office is partnering with the IT department to explore options for issuing a city email account to all of our board and commission members. The goal here is twofold. First, to facilitate communications about city business matters between our board and commission members and their support teams. And secondly, to provide a more secure and reliable means of monitoring those accounts to ensure the city is compliant with the requirements of the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act for data disclosures. Some of our policy level bodies already have city-provided email accounts. This was necessary for their operations in a remote environment due to the COVID health pandemic. However, we have not provided email accounts to all of our boards and commissions. It's primarily a cost factor, and we are working with the IT department to identify some potential cost savings that we anticipate with a recommendation coming in the future on that point. As already indicated, the clerk's office conducts meetings every month with ABC staff liaisons. Those meetings allow us to address common concerns and issues related to board topics. We consistently encourage active participation from all department-based staff liaisons, and we feel that this monthly meeting provides space for group discussions about reforms and other ways that we can collectively improve the operation of and support for city boards and commissions. I routinely forward those agendas and meeting information to all department heads to further encourage active participation by their staff and to ensure awareness across the city enterprise. We do have a group of regular attendees, but we have not been successful yet at reaching 100% participation from ABC liaisons at this point. In order to increase internal awareness, my team also posts these meeting agendas and materials to the clerk's internal website on City Talk so that the entire enterprise has access to these reference materials. These monthly meetings are important to me personally because I believe that regular attendance and active participation would minimize or even eliminate much of the stress, confusion, and frustration that has been experienced across the enterprise as a result of implementing these reforms. The staff liaisons are the city's critical connection between the city enterprise and all of our boards and commissions. More importantly, they often serve as the city's representative with our board and commission members, ensuring that they have timely, accurate information about these reforms and about expectations for ABC service is vital to ensuring the success of our boards and commissions. Every month, at every single meeting with these staff liaisons, I offer this message: be calm, nothing is changing, there's no need for unnecessary stress and drama. My team and I are doing everything in our power to be open, accessible, and as direct with these staff liaisons as possible. In the end, of course, my team does not have direct contact with most of our Tier 3 and Tier 4 bodies. We must rely on the goodwill and partnership of our staff liaisons. That's why those monthly meetings are so important, and why I continue to urge all of our staff liaisons and their department leaders to prioritize their attendance and their active participation. Starting in 2025, we intend to make these monthly meetings in-person events only. We found that remote or hybrid formats do not reach as many of our staff liaisons as we'd assumed. We also will be tracking attendance and following up with department leaders when we notice that the staff liaisons' absences are more frequent. Finally, looking beyond 2025, there are two long-term goals on our list. First, we're exploring options that would allow the city to apply more of these adopted reforms to boards and commissions classified in Tier 2. I've mentioned that a few times. This would include, for example, applying these reforms and improvements to the Planning Commission, the Heritage Preservation Commission, the Zoning Board of Adjustment, the Independent Audit Committee, the Civil Rights Commission, and the Community Commission on Police Oversight, as well as our Ethical Practices Board. All of these bodies have a quasi-independent relationship to the City Council, so enacting those reforms would require ordinance amendments for each individual board or commission, and that will take more time and require more work. For those reasons, we've decided to push that scope of work out to a future phase, most likely beyond 2025. I'm also exploring options that would allow the clerk's office to assume more direct responsibility for board and commission support. This would allow the clerk's office to achieve greater benefits from standardization. It would allow the city to achieve more efficiencies through consolidating and centralizing support for board and commission operations, and it would allow for the creation of a single career ladder for clerks, from advisory boards and commissions to our independent bodies to council committees and ultimately to the city council. And that would significantly improve my ability to recruit and develop and retain well-qualified clerks, a topic I've addressed in the past few budget cycles. This year, I submitted a request for 5 new positions to create a pool of clerks that would primarily be assigned to support the appointed boards and commissions in the clerk's office. Although that request was not included in the mayor's recommended budget, I believe the idea has merit, and I'll continue to explore that proposal with council as we look at the budget. Over the past few years, the clerk's office has assumed responsibilities for clerking for all 3 planning bodies, the Ethical Practices Board and the new Community Commission on Police Oversight. In each of those cases, I believe the administration, as well as the members of our boards and commissions, would agree that the clerking support has improved, and it's allowed those departments then to refocus on their level of professional and technical support for those bodies, allowing the clerk's office to focus on providing its core services of public notifications, meeting management, agenda publication, and record-keeping functions, and to provide those services in a consistent, standardized way. Currently, of the city's total number of boards and commissions, the clerk's office supports 12 directly, which is about 21% of all of our boards and commissions. Under the ordinance, the clerk also is the executive secretary to all Tier 3 and 4 bodies, meaning that we have direct or indirect support for an additional 18 bodies, which brings the total number that we are responsible for of the total number of city boards to 30. That's about 53% of all of our boards and commissions, more than half. Despite that significant workload, the clerk's office has only 1 FTE to support all ABC functions, and only 5 clerks to support council committees, 12 bodies directly, as I've already indicated, and support for all 18 Tier 3 advisory bodies. That's clearly insufficient for the volume of work being performed. In most cases, departments have 1 or more FTE positions assigned to support their Tier 3 bodies that meet on average once a month. I think pursuing this proposal would achieve cost savings across the entire enterprise. It would consolidate similar functions into a single office, offering efficiencies, and provide an important opportunity to develop a single career ladder for clerks that could improve future recruitment and development that serves the entire enterprise. As we think about the future of the city's appointed boards and commissions, I've also identified some high-level goals and objectives to focus our work in 2025 and beyond. So our first goal is to ensure that all appointed boards and commissions have the support that they need to perform their assigned duties and to perform their delegated functions. We want all of our boards and commissions to have the resources required to be effective. That includes, for example, the objectives listed on this slide. We need to ensure all board and commission members have the training that they need to understand and to perform their duties. And to that end, a comprehensive enterprise orientation program is critical. I've already highlighted work underway about this issue on this point. It means ensuring also that staff liaisons have the training and resources they need to be effective, and we are addressing that through our regular monthly meetings. Finally, we're tracking quorums and attendance and are exploring ways to expedite recruitment processes to fill any unanticipated vacancies during the year so that all board and commission members are filled and the rosters are able to support a majority meeting. We don't want vacancies to prevent appointed boards and commissions from doing their work. Finally, we know that in many cases, funding is needed to support boards and commissions. The city currently does not provide dedicated funding for boards and commissions. Where funding is required, it must come from the operating budget of the department assigned to support the board. That imposes some serious restrictions on these departments, who must find ways to accommodate the expenditures of board and commissions within their existing budgets. As an office that supports 12 of the highest-ranking bodies in the enterprise, I can attest to the budget impact that boards and commissions have. Our second goal focuses on promoting effective community engagement and public awareness about the work of our city boards and commissions. We want to partner with a lot of our internal city departments on promoting that work, on promoting awareness, on generating reports, and ensuring that the ABCs are relevant to the work that's being done by the city, and we can promote the public awareness about their accomplishments that help support the city's work in that area. And finally, our third goal is to facilitate effective collaboration between boards and commissions and multiple stakeholders. Most importantly, of course, with the city council and mayor, our elected officials, but also with departments and in community. So this ties back to our first goal about ensuring effective training and resources being provided, and includes ensuring understanding in the community about the work of our boards and commissions in the city enterprise. So as you can see, these goals flow together. We plan to report our progress against these goals in future reports as another means of building closer connections between the work of the city and the work of our appointed boards and commissions. I've updated the timeline starting with today's presentation. Again, our priority focus is on completing the resolutions to reestablish existing Tier 3 advisory boards. We anticipate that work coming forward before the end of this year, but certainly it will carry over into 2025. In all instances, I want to be able to complete those resolutions by the end of the first quarter next year. Again, that includes 18 Tier 3 bodies. After that, we would look to address the other items that I've shared in this report, which includes, but is not limited to, finalizing the ABC Operations Manual, launching new ABC modules and limbs, starting the new and improved enterprise-wide orientation program, developing work plan and report templates, and expanding on the other ideas that I've shared with you today. With that, Madam Chair, I've completed my presentation. I'm happy to respond to questions the committee might have.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk, for the thorough presentation. Really appreciate it. I will first recognize Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Clerk Carl, for the presentation. I'm wondering if you, throughout this process of reform, have decommissioned or, gotten rid of any appointed boards and commissions.
Through the chair, Councilmember Cashman, we have not taken any actions yet to decommission or sunset any boards or commissions. It is an action that will come forward before the end of this year. As part of our process of classifying boards and commissions, one of our tasks was to look at boards and commissions that have no members, that have not met, and won't meet because they don't have quorums, they don't have members. And so there is a small handful of boards and commissions that have been created which don't have members and don't meet that we would bring forward and ask that you officially sunset those bodies.
Okay, so the threshold for sunsetting a body would be 0 members? Like if there's still 1 member, or it would be retained?
No, as adopted by the ordinance, it's more about membership, quorum, and activity. So if there's been no activity, there have been no meetings, there are no members, there's no board, and we should eliminate the board.
Okay, I'm asking because there's one commission that I haven't seen any activity about, but I think it existed a long time ago, but it's actually something that I'm working on. So maybe I'll just connect with you later about the history of that one to see if maybe we could revitalize it or if we could take on the issue from another approach.
Happy to meet with you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Clerk Crowell, I echo the chair's sentiments. Thank you for this robust update. It reminds us how much work you do around here, because all of this is a real sideshow to your main roles in the clerk's office. I believe you said, with some quick math, saying that 12 constitutes 21%, that there's around 57 boards and commissions in our city. 57. One of the possible outcomes of this process was to identify those groups no longer needed, or as Councilmember Cashman said, maybe there are creative new ways that we can really bring engagement out into the community and get things done. I know we've leaned more towards doing work groups, so more temporary kinds of bodies that would come together to wrestle with a particular issue that then don't have to exist in perpetuity. You answered the question for Councilmember Cashman, but the thought and I was one of 6 authors on this body still. There were a couple that are no longer on the council. It is to eventually sunset some of these. We cannot keep adding to these over time without the courage to remove ones that have perhaps run out their ability for their recommendations to come forward in meaningful ways. I know we also as a body really want to honor the time of those that choose to serve for us on boards and commissions, and we know that we aren't making good use of all 57 of these worth of output to inform staff's work or our decision making. We want them all to be effective, and this really does require support, and that's something that you mentioned, is how we better support those that are serving on these boards and commissions. On the reforms part of your presentation, I really like this standardization of orientation and of appointments and of recruitment, and I just wanted to remind some of my colleagues that some boards and commissions, for example, the CCPO, it does require a lot of orientation. There's a lot of fairly expensive training that goes into it to allow them to see sensitive data. And there are other ones as well. I think Civil Rights Commission might be one of those. Like School Board President Colin Beachy said this morning, we're going to eventually need to make some hard decisions about what we stop doing around here. And I really want to point to the creativity of ways that we can engage our constituents and residents of the city in new ways in the future. I like your phase-in approach. It's a good one. Just to mention, the 6 of us here on this dais that are authors of this include Councilmember Jenkins, myself, Councilmember Wansley, Councilmembers Rainville, Vita, and Ellison. Last term, Councilmembers Goodman and Johnson were also a part of this effort. And I think we're all committed to seeing it through to a better and a more meaningful place. So I really hope we can see past some of the shorter term drama that comes up one by one and often to us as council members, right? So I'm really eager to see this into the future, and I'm committed to do so. And I wanted to hope that others of you share in that. I think you do. Thanks.
Thank you, Council Member. I'll recognize President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chowdhury. I was wondering if you could give maybe a past, present, and future perspective on how we can have historically worked with boards and commissions, and how maybe what our aspirational view of that would be from your perspective, just in terms of how we can empower our communities to help shape our policy making. It seems like that's the intention of the boards and commissions. It's not always clear to me if we've operationalized that in a really productive way.
Thank you. Through the chair, Council President Payne, you and I have had some conversations about this as well, and I think it speaks to the point of how do we bring boards and commissions more fully into council-led policy work, so that, for example, one potential future idea that I think you have expressed, so sorry to put you on the spot, requests for committee actions oftentimes have a direct correlation to work of boards and commissions, and yet the request for committee action does not reflect that fact, and it doesn't request input from a board or commission on things that are being considered and acted on by council. So is that an opportunity for us to bring them more fully into the council's legislative process? I think the answer to that is yes. I think having the ability to ensure that boards and commissions provide, and this is the language I've tried to adapt, meaningful opportunities for engagement in the city's process, not just because I got together once a month with people that I enjoy their company and we have some things in common and we share an interest or a passion for a specific topic. If the city is organizing these boards and commissions for the purpose of basically social gatherings, I'm not sure that meets that definition of meaningful opportunities for participation and decision making. And so elevating the role of the boards and commissions a bit by requiring work plans that identify what work are you doing that ties to work of the city, and then annual reports that say here's what we did and here's how we directly contributed to those goals, those objectives that the mayor and council identified, will not only make their service productive, but also reinforce the meaningfulness of their service for themselves, for the community, for the work that they're doing on behalf of the enterprise. And I think that is one of the most important underlying aims of the reforms that we've been leading forward for a decade or so, is how do we really engage residents in that work and make that work meaningful to the work of the city and the council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Jenkins.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury, and I just want to say thank you, Mr. Clerk, as someone who has been working on this project since I was a policy aide on the City Council. It's really good to see that this is coming to finally to some kind of fruition. I'm really glad to see the coordination of dates for people to apply and subsequently come on to the boards and commissions. I think that's going to be a really big improvement instead of the staggered times and appointment processes that we go through, which kind of makes it hard to really recruit people to these bodies. And as been stated, it probably is time to sunset some of these boards and commissions that are not functioning, that don't have quorums, et cetera, et cetera. So great work, and looking forward to the future iterations.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll also just say I really appreciate all your work on this as well. I got caught up to speed this year on ABC reform and just working on understanding what it means to create a new board. I've learned a lot, and just, appreciate all the intentionality. And I think I share a goal with a lot of the other council members. We're hoping to see real connection, collaboration, and good work product from our constituents show up into the actual work of the city of Minneapolis, and not just work that happens and ends up feeling siloed. So thank you for the presentation. I'll ask members one more time if there's any more questions to get into queue. Okay, seeing none, I will direct the clerk to file that report. Wonderful. Item number 6 is a presentation giving an update on the work relating to the legislative process reform staff direction by the Oversight and Evaluation Division within the City Office of the City Auditor. I'll ask Interim Director Jody Molinar Hansen to come up and present, and also shout out that we have our Oversight and Evaluation team all in the audience. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Vice Chair Chowdhury, council members. As you noted, I'm Jody Molinar Hansen, the Interim Director of Oversight and Evaluation Division, which is in the Office of City Auditor. And I'm here today to present the division's 2024-2025 work plan. But before I do that, I would like to provide some additional context that I think would be a helpful reminder for when we became a division and what our purpose is. Just a highlight of some key milestones. Oversight and evaluation was established in October of last year and became into being at the beginning of this year. We received 5 FTEs in ongoing funding for the 2024 budget, and 4 new staff started in February, just a little over 1 month after the division began. The division received 2 staff directions to work on in February and March of this year, the first being the legislative process reform, which I've been working on putting together a project plan for oversight and evaluations part of that staff direction. And staff have been diving into learning and understanding about the new government structure, the new Office of City Auditor, and the legislative process and system. The second staff direction, the legislative process, the Legislative Department Financial Policies Review and Analysis was given to our consultant, Abdo Financial Solutions, to complete. I was appointed in July of this year, and Oversight and Evaluation's 2024-2025 work plan was presented and approved at yesterday's audit committee meeting. Some of you might be familiar with this visual that the city clerk put together. I continue to use it as a guide for what we need to learn and understand, what areas we should be focusing on, what others within the Office of City Auditor and City Clerk are focusing on, and where there might be overlapping opportunities and work that should be done and explored for better alignment. This is just a little bit more context about the Office of City Auditor, which was established in 2023, along with the Audit Division, which used to be a department, the new Policy and Research Division, and then a established Audit Committee that happened in 2023, and then Oversight and Evaluation Division was established in 2024. Another visual that the city clerk has put together that I also find very useful that helps show the breakdown of the council's oversight functions and how the offices of city auditor and city clerk support those functions. So what is legislative oversight? It can take many different forms, both with the legislative standing committees of the council and by creating special committees and staff entities designed to specifically evaluate organizational operations and performance. The legislative process reform staff direction directs the city clerk and the city auditor to report on how to define, clarify, and strengthen the professional support provided by the respective offices to ensure effective support of the city council's legislative, policymaking, and oversight functions. But before the Oversight and Evaluation defines, clarifies, and strengthens its professional support, we are focusing on our efforts to ensure the legislative body's policymaking and oversight functions within the legislative process are defined, clarified, strengthened, so we can effectively wrap our support service around those. This is just reiterating Ordinance 8.130D3, which specifically outlines the purpose of the division, and which also easily translates into the mission, our mission as well. And just highlighting our staff within the Oversight and Evaluation Division, staff will be coming up and presenting a little bit later. So our 2024 evaluation, Oversight and Evaluation Work Plan. Similar to the Audit Division, our work will be led through an approved work plan. Also similar to the Audit Division, we will utilize a collaborative approach for identifying which council-adopted policies we review, analyze, monitor, and/or evaluate for that year. And specific methodology for how to do that is still being developed. We have identified some approaches to use while doing this work, and I'm just highlighting a few of them today. Appreciative inquiry, which I refer to as the judge less, understand more approach. It uses an asset-based approach that focuses first on what's working well, in order to provide better understanding for how to improve what's not working well. The second approach is human-centered design, which provides a repeatable process for learning and understanding systems and processes in order to develop new and/or improve existing processes. This approach centers people with whom the process exists and those being impacted by the outcomes of the process. And it also allows trying out of ideas in order to find out the ideal solution before implementing them, a sort of try before you buy approach. The three key aspects of this plan are the continued development of the division's operating procedures, standards, and services, to complete the work outlined in the legislative process reform staff direction as it relates to the division by the end of 2025, and to complete the financial policies review aspect of the legislative department budget and financial policies review staff direction by the end of the year. So even though we are not charged with providing auditing services, our processes and standards will be informed by the IIA and the Government Accountability Office audit standards. Some anticipated milestones for developing our services, procedures, and standards will be that the development of those by mid-year of 2025, which we will present to the audit committee, the development of oversight framework, and provide the support, develop the oversight framework and provide services that support the legislative body's policymaking and oversight functions by the end of 2025. And finally, develop and provide policy evaluation framework and services to the legislative body by the end of 2026. This staff direction is effective until December of 2025, and oversight and evaluations work associated with this will account for a significant amount of our time in 2024. And working closely with the Office of City Clerk and the divisions within the Office of City Auditor in the coming year will help us all achieve these outcomes for the legislative body by the end of 2025. This staff direction also is mutually beneficial to the legislative body and the offices of City Clerk and City Auditor because it allows us to collectively reestablish, rebuild, and strengthen the legislative body's policymaking and oversight functions while ensuring alignment and integration of the services our division will be providing in support of those functions. And the same can be said for the aligning of work when appropriate between the two offices and between the three divisions within the Office of City Auditor. There are some risks and considerations associated with this staff direction because utilizing a human-centered design approach with this will have our division performing work that we might not be doing once the division is fully developed. And so expectations will need to be managed appropriately. And so we're putting together some process controls and transparency measures that will help clearly define the parameters of the work the division will be doing as part of the staff direction versus the work that we'll be doing ongoing once the staff direction has been completed. And some examples of those process controls and transparency measures include quarterly updates to the committee of the whole, as outlined in the staff direction, plus updates when needed to the audit committee, and then also monthly updates to the legislative body on the process that is being made with this staff direction. This is a visual that many of you are familiar with. It's a representation of the legislative process. Looking at this process identifies different ways for us to improve the quality and flow of information, to improve the legislative body's policymaking and oversight functions, improve the connectedness to other key work of the legislature, legislative, executive, and administrative branches within our government structure, and to improve transparency and understanding by those following the legislative process. This legislative process provides the ideal environment to use human-centered design. It operates in a 2-week cycle. That 2-week cycle allows for rapid and repeated prototyping and testing to occur. And it's also one of the most visible processes that the city has, which makes an ideal situation for human-centered design, as we can actually see the process working in real time. And we have started working on this staff direction by focusing on the start of the legislative process, which are the requests for committee actions. And we anticipate working through the entire legislative process a few times next year to continue to identify and pilot opportunities for improvement, and then make suggested improvements to the process. And we will be doing that work closely with the Office of City Clerk and within the divisions of the City Auditor. So, as I noted, the focus is starting with the request for committee actions. And we're looking for opportunities to improve information provided in them and connected to RCAs. Because better information can lead to better understanding, better discussions, better decisions, better planning, and better outcomes. And with that, I'm going to introduce our team. We have Etrophic Burnett, Tor Chavaria, Heather Gillick, and Charlie Ito. And Etropic and Tor will start their part of the presentation.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Chaudhry and committee members. My name is Etrophic Burnett, and I'm here today to engage with you all on the volumes of items, tools, and resources, city goals, and plans that our Division of Oversight and Evaluation had to find and understand to effectively support the legislative branch within this new government structure, this new office, and also this new division. There were a lot of tools and items that we had to get and understand: LIMS, the ordinance, the charter, OpenGov, council rules, guides and manuals, along with attending committee agenda settings and meetings, and the first ever committee work plans. This took time for us to learn and understand all the tools and plans and items, such as requests for committee actions. While gathering and learning all of these items, we began to look for connectivity to historical adopted city plans and goals, such as the Strategic Racial Equity Action Plan, the 2040 Plan, the Transportation Action Plan, the Climate Action Plan, Racism as a Public Health Emergency, Safe and Thriving Community Report, the Blueprint for Public Participation and Engagement. This leads us to a better comprehensive understanding, approach, and method on how oversight and evaluation will support the legislative branch to build out the oversight framework that supports the legislative body to make better informed decisions for the 33,000 constituents that each 13 council members represents. This leads us to the questions: which lens are we utilizing this in?
Good afternoon, Chair Chaudhry and council members. My name is Tor Chavaria, pronouns they, them. So to continue, this comprehensive learning led us to utilizing all the different lenses within oversight and evaluation. We ourselves came into our roles with different lenses. As our team researched and learned about the city's current legislative processes and policies, we realized the lens we all had in common was curiosity. And as we dug deep into our learnings, our curiosity led us to paying attention to the connectivity items have with each other, with community, and with other entities. We also looked at the financial impacts items carry and the urgency items have. One major lens we focused on was the assurance of equitable practices. Do items reflect racial equity, gender equity, and LGBTQIA equity? Do items reflect the city's goals and values? As we continue learning to navigate through the city's internal system, our team's focus is to not reinvent the wheel, but instead asking the questions, what is working? What isn't working? And most importantly, what are the opportunities? And from there, I'll pass it on to my colleagues, Charlie and Heather. Thank you.
Hello, it's nice to see you again. I'm Charlie Ito in Oversight and Evaluation. To get clarity and provide useful support, we needed to simplify all of that complexity. And what we're showing is a two-dimensional representation of a little bit of the work that we're going to be able to do. We had to develop a process for moving through complexity together as a team, and in fact, we needed to develop a lot of processes as we are new. So this graphic is one of the ways that we will go through a topic, which is the context here, as work is requested of us or it's in our work plan that was recently adopted. But we understand that this is an oversimplification of the amount of complexity that there is in the issues that come in front of you. These steps, however, allow us to create consistency in how we provide review and analysis of topics. And we're going to be developing a work board to track the status of items and capacity. We've scheduled work sessions to discuss amongst ourselves what's working and needs improvement and where there's opportunities, and assess our work. And of course, we have a lot more to do to develop an effective legislative oversight framework and the tools that support it. We situated ourselves with existing staff when Jody hired us into this team, and even with that leverage, we still had a lot of detail that we needed to learn from all of the pieces that my colleagues just pointed out, whether it's lenses and the complexity of connectedness, or the individual artifacts and documents and processes and tools and all those other pieces. So we now have a solid understanding of the legislative process, the budget process, council committees, including work plans and scope of authority, and existing city documentation and systems. With that, we've begun to look for more ways to improve the information at the start of the legislative process, provided in and connected to the requests for committee actions. Better information leads to better discussions, plannings, and outcomes. We'll continue to use information we can access, LIMS, council committees, agenda settings, working meetings with staff, hopefully with you as well, to support the legislative branch. We look forward to your thoughts on our prototyped products and processes to help us improve the work we do.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you. Good to have some FaceTime with each of you. My name is Heather Gillick. I'm also on the Oversight and Evaluation team. We'll dive a little bit into some of the key outputs that we have been working on so far, what we arrange really as our observations, insights, and recommendations. As we've been attending council committee meetings and reviewing legislative procedures and documents, we've identified some patterns. These observations have allowed us to identify areas where the process can be smoother and more transparent. From these observations, we've derived some insights. These are our lessons learned, the key takeaways that help us understand why certain things happen the way that they do. And our insights lead us to ask questions like how we can present information more clearly and how we can help the council to make more informed decisions. Finally, these insights fuel our recommendations, which will be designed as concrete steps that leverage opportunities to improve the existing legislative processes. Ultimately, our observations give us clarity, our insights help us to focus on what matters the most, and our recommendations will be designed to cut through the complexity and offer actionable solutions for the council to use. To give you a more concrete example of how some of these outputs can come to life, let's take a look at this sample council committee agenda memo. Some of our early work has been around improving the request for committee action process, something we've talked a lot about today, ensuring that the RCA is clearly tied to the city's broader goals. We're beginning with working on grants and gift acceptances before expanding to other types of RCAs. Every item seen on an agenda has an RCA, which ideally provides the council with the details that are needed to make decisions. We will work closely with council committees to ensure that these RCAs are clear, comprehensive, and aligned with the city's strategic objectives. We refer to a well-prepared RCA as having a good story because it not only tells what the request is, but why it matters, how it aligns with broader city goals, and why it should be approved or not approved. We now prepare memos for the council ahead of agenda-setting meetings, distilling our observations and insights into suggested questions for council members to explore. In this way, our team's work ensures that what could be a murky, cumbersome process becomes clearer, more efficient, and better aligned with city priorities. We aim to make sure that all council members can focus on the bigger picture, knowing that the details are presented in a way that allows for informed and timely decision-making. And with that, we'll hand it back over to Jody to guide us through what's next in our journey.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thank you. So the staff direction work plan for 2025. It's consulting with the key stakeholders, yourselves and the Office of City Clerk and the divisions within the City Auditor to continue to identify and implement additional opportunities for improvement within the legislative process. And some examples are identifying opportunities to work better in a better alignment and in better coordination with the two offices I just mentioned. For us to continue working through the legislative process and finding opportunities for improvement, and then testing out some of those ideas and then presenting them to the legislative body to decide how you want to move forward on them. And then also, as noted, continuing the support of updating the committee work plans. And finally, developing council performance expectations and feedback loops for key council actions. What that means is actually tying performance expectations, such as anticipated outcomes, and establishing regular updates to council committees to ensure policies and actions the legislative body has approved are working as intended. And so essentially that's once an action has come through the legislative process to attach with that some expectations regarding the effectiveness of the policy, and then feedback loops in which entities working on those policies or actions would come back to you and give you updates throughout the process. And then finally, with the Legislative Department Financial Policies Review, Abdo Financial Solutions was enlisted to complete this review and analysis. The original due date was modified to accompany the vendor's ability to complete a thorough review of the city's financial policies. The result will be the production of a report presented at a future budget committee. And where that stands currently right now is we are doing an internal review of that report. And we'll be providing it to the chair of the budget committee shortly. That wraps up our presentation, and I will now stand for questions.
Thank you, Director. Really appreciate the presentation. We have a couple members in queue. I'll recognize Council President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chowdhury. Thank you for this report, or this presentation. This was really good. I know there's been a lot of questions around what is this new department, what should we expect, and it's just really good to see not just you, but the full team come and present, because it's really starting to put some teeth onto what it is that the department will work on. And I think in some of our early conversations, as we were trying to understand, we used the legislative process reform to really start shaping what the department has the potential to be. And I think one of the big things that stood out to me was how the RCA is really the atomic unit of work of this institution. And I actually really liked your highlighting of this kind of lenses analysis and specifically connections, because every RCA should be able to connect to work plans, strategic plans, boards and commissions, like we just talked about in the previous presentation. How does that work from our community, bubbling up and through this institution, and making sure that it's actually delivering on the aspirations of our community? And I think that I'm really starting to see how that's going to work through how your team's approach is going to help support the body. And, again, always wanting to remind you're about a year delayed from policy and research. So we've long now understood what policy and research is working on. And now we're just starting to learn about what is possible with oversight and evaluation. So I'm really grateful for this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll next recognize Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks for this presentation. It looks like a lot of work, and I love your team photo the best. It's a very creative way to have a team photo. I think the difference between the policy and research team versus this one is a conversation that I've been having actually after the last time you presented with Councilmember Vita, and she said it quite well. She said, I understand how I use the policy and research team, quite a bit less sure about how we give input and receive output from this group. So just as open thoughts as to how we can be really clear about how we might all utilize this effort. The original legislative process reform directive that Councilmember Wansley and I authored did require regular reports to council. And I want to note again that this is the first we've had this term. So I'm glad to get this update. Can you tell us what cadence you'll be using to report back to all of us here at COW, Committee of the Whole?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Palmisano, yes. So as I noted, we are anticipating quarterly updates to COW. If we need to do them more often, we are happy to do that. And we will also be providing the legislative body with monthly updates on our work, because our work is coming up with the ideas, but it's ultimately up to the legislative body and the clerk's office if you want to actually implement those ideas, because you and the clerk's office are the process owners of the legislative process. But we will definitely for sure be presenting more updates more regularly.
Thank you. And I just want to note that reports are to go to the full council, not just leadership.
Yep, correct.
On slide 7, you had said the Oversight and Evaluation Division provides professional, nonpartisan analysis, evaluation, and consulting services to the city council and its committees. And is there a way you would propose maybe better sharing this information with this entire body on your work outside of regular reports? Because we all deserve that, and frankly, demand the same information so that decisions can be made with full transparency for us and for the public.
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Palmisano, most definitely. We are waiting for the new city auditor to come on board, and then through that, put together a plan. But we do plan, in the meantime, to have regular updates with individual council members on our progress to date, because we know that we have been a bit behind in doing that. So we will be doing that in the future.
Thank you. And then do you have an ETA on the financial policies review that was originally due by July 15th of this year? We just added funds to the contract for this work, and I'm just wondering when we'll see some results from it.
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Palmisano, as I noted, we're doing an internal review of the policy analysis and review, and then we will be meeting with the Chair of the Budget Committee, Vice President Chugtai, and start talking about those next steps.
Thank you. I'm eager to see them.
Thank you. I'll next recognize Councilmember Vita.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few questions. The first one is, the presentation stated that you're going to make the RCAs better. I think that's a great idea, but I guess I want to know who's going to make the RCA, like who's going to be responsible for making the RCA better? What does this process look like for my office? I keep asking you questions about like how my office accesses the services. So you may have to really like go down to lay terms for me with this, right? Because I'm really trying to understand how my office connects with this department. In particular, you've said this one thing that I get it, an RCA. So like how would my office access your office about making the RCA better? And then like who in the department does that, and like what does that look like?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Vita, the specifics of how we roll out the this test that we're doing right now with looking at and reviewing RCAs to see if there is if the RCAs tell a good story. And right now we are focusing on grants and gift acceptances. While we're working on that and providing the chairs and then council members with some review of that, we will be working with the city clerk to figure out what those next steps are once we get to a point of deciding about what the next steps are. And then we will be working collectively to present those back to the legislative body. And as far as reaching out and working with our department, we are trying to figure out those procedures right now to provide that additional level of support. I just don't have the specifics on how that will work at this point.
Okay. I don't know why this is like this complicated. I really, like, this department was explained to us as our department, right? So like, why am I not able to access? And then you said it's only for committee chairs. But if I'm the council member that's championing something, I'm submitting the RCA to the clerks to go on the agenda. So you wouldn't reach back to me about it?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Vita, I'm sorry for the confusion in what I'm trying to explain. We are only looking at the RCAs that are on the draft agendas for AEO, BIZ, CNI, and Public Health and Safety. We are providing a review quickly of just RCAs associated with grants and with gift acceptances right now. We will be moving on to starting to look at RCAs related to contracting. And what we're doing there is utilizing that visual that Heather talked about as a way to identify if grants or gift acceptances, if we're finding some questions that we think might be useful for you to ask. We then take those, our review of that and send it to the chairs and the vice chairs of those committees. And then 2 days later, we then send the review that we've done to all of the council members on those committees. So that is how we're starting the process.
Is there a certain reason why those things were like, is there something happening with gift acceptances or like the things you named, like why were those selected?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Vita, we started with what we thought were the simplest of RCAs for staff to start to understand, because we had to spend some time looking at grants, understanding the grant process. Grants also have a significant impact on the budget. So that is our starting point to start to look at those. From grants, you have occasionally contracts coming out of them. So that is the next kind of logical step for for us to start to look at for RCAs. And then we'll be continuing to grow our knowledge and eventually get to all RCAs. But that was the easiest entry point at this point, which also allowed staff to dig into grants, learn that process, understand it. So that is why we chose that entry point. And then gift acceptances were pretty straightforward as well, so we quickly expanded to look at those as well.
Thank you. The next question is, so at the beginning of the year when I met with the council president about, how this department was going to work, he said to me that you all helped with developing the work plans for all of the committees and that the work would be around helping to execute that work, right? And all the work plans. And I didn't see anything in here capturing that. So I'm wondering if that's still a thing, and like how are you and your team going to work to help with the execution of those work plans, all of the things. I mean, I myself, I think I only participated in the development of one of the work plans, but just wondering how, I mean, that was, at the beginning of the year, that was the focus, right? It was like you all would help with the development of the work plans, and you also would help with making sure those, that the things on the work plan happen.
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Vita, on slide 27, we are intending to continue to support and create a process for helping update the committee work plans. It's your first go at creating them. We were not at a point where we could help all the committees put together your work plan. So a lot of the work plans were put together by the chairs and vice chairs and all of your and the committee members. But we've been monitoring the work plans. We have a plan at the end of this year to put together a process in which we can help build and develop any updates that you're doing to your committee plans next year. As far as ensuring that the work is done through those committee work plans, we are not at that point to identify specifically how those get followed through, but initially it might be, again, us helping put together a series of questions for the committees to ask departments for, in order for them to start providing that information back to you, and we'll continue to figure out what support looks like of the committee work plans going forward. It is one of our key areas that we're looking into.
Okay. Just this one you don't have to answer now, but on slides 13 and 15, I would really appreciate like some examples of like how this plays out, like a real issue, right, that could come to you all, and like the things you've captured in slides 13 and 15, how that would, like what that process would look like, what that means for my office, how it gets to your office, how, if it comes back before. I really think at this point I better maybe set up regular meetings with you, because I just struggle to understand like how this works out for Ward 4. And then the last thing, I could be wrong in this, but I feel like I heard that you think that the process may take up to 2 years for you to figure out like exactly how this is gonna work out. So up until the end of next year potentially is when you'll have a final of exactly am I understanding that right?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Vita, we're trying to chunk out the development of this division into what seem to be logical pieces. So putting together the operating procedures and standards by mid-year of 2025, and we now that Policy and Research has put their policies and procedures together, we can look to theirs and to audits to help build that more quickly. And then utilizing the legislative process reform staff direction, that will be the way that we start to figure out what our oversight services look like. And so by the end of 2025, we hope to have all of those in place. And then the next piece of that, which is also a big lift, is figuring out how to provide policy evaluation to the legislative body, and ideally that would come next. It's not to say that things can't get escalated through or moved up through next year, but we were just trying to create some milestones that seem to fall into place, but definitely can have that opportunity to figure out if anything needs to move forward more quickly.
But the overall department development is like a 2-year plan, is what this is saying.
Similar to how long it took Policy and Research to put together their operating procedures and standards, which was 2 years, we will be doing the same.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Councilmember Vita. I put myself in queue as well. I appreciate all of the work that you have done and Oversight and Evaluation has done. It's very clear you've spent a lot of time doing research, putting together this presentation, and getting the report to us here in council. I also want to give a little bit of feedback. I kind of share in the feeling around wanting more information and having it with some regularity. I think it would be helpful to have some sort of just like digital communication that's sent to us in some regularity to understand the steps and changes that are happening. It would also, as a council member, it'd be great to figure out at what points through this process we can give feedback and an input on the work that you're doing. I had a similar question as Councilmember Vita on kind of understanding what the deliverables are when it comes to services that support the legislative body's policymaking, and specifically the oversight function when it comes to work that's moving on the administrative side. Like if the policy we implemented is being executed, or if like a program is showing efficacy around what our stated goals are. And it would just be helpful in future presentations or a future discussion for me to kind of get a better understanding also around what the specifics are, because truthfully, I am having a little bit of difficulty just visualizing what this could be. I feel through this presentation, a strong foundation after receiving it on how you're examining the different pieces of work that currently exists, right? I think it's very valuable that we have documents like the Transit Action Plan, that we have a commitment to race equity in different ways within our city body, that policy that's been driven and is supposed to be a marker shows up in the work that we're going to continue to do or the work that the administration does. But just kind of understanding the destination that we're headed in, and like what do those milestones more meaningfully and more specifically mean, are things that I'm hoping at following this meeting we can get some clarity on.
Vice Chair Chowdhury, of course, I'm hearing that loud and clear. We've been busy, so busy trying to figure out all these moving pieces that we lost sight of updating you on a regular basis. So we will be making improvements to that.
Thank you. And I had a question about the RCA. Is there a goal when it comes to RCA that we look at as council members on LIMS to kind of shift what we're seeing there and just like the interface there? Like, are we going towards a goal where it would say, this is like, you click into this thing and it shows that this touches on this part of like the Transit Action Plan, for example?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, going back to what Council President Payne talked about, our working through this is identifying where those gaps and opportunities are to have RCAs provide more and better information. So when they come in front of you, you are able to review them. You can see prior actions to them. You can see supporting documents. You can see what they're tied to. Right now, it's a bit of hit or miss. And we worked with the city clerk to kind of identify that as a starting point, the RCAs. And so that's some of the work that we're doing. And then we will be putting together, after we test some stuff out and expand beyond grants, starting to come up also with a little process guide on like the background of for grants, like did the grant follow these processes, these steps that they were supposed to? So it's kind of a twofold, having the RCAs provide more and better information, and then giving you a little bit of learning behind and understanding about that bigger process. So when a grant comes before you, well, we'll be doing that right now, is checking to see if they went through the proper steps, or if they kind of missed that initial step of coming to you before going out for applying for that grant. But those are just some examples.
Thank you. And just one final question. In the chart that you have that kind of walks through the legislative process, there's like legislative driven actions and then there's administrative driven actions. I have, over the years working in the city, have seen like varying types of RCAs that have been put forward by administration, and sometimes they're like very detailed. They go into the information. I'm left with asking very few questions, or maybe I'll ask a couple follow-ups based off of what's within there. And then sometimes it's a bare bones RCA that doesn't offer a lot of clarity or information. Are you thinking about what it means if an RCA shows up like that? Is it going to get kicked back to the administration for improvement? What's kind of the discussion at this point?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, we haven't figured out those next steps because that would include the clerk and the legislative body because of your council rules on that process. But it is definitely looking at, as I said earlier with appreciative inquiry, where are RCAs being done that actually have all that information? You have very few questions, and using that as that standard to then figure out how to make improvements to the RCAs that do not have as much information in them, most definitely. And that's, again, our future work with the clerk's office to start to figure out, once are done kind of testing this, what are those next steps for putting together and implementing changes.
Great, thank you. And I'll just note, RCA feels like very tangible, deliverable, and makes it easier for me to visualize what a support service looks like. So really appreciate that and look forward to hearing more about what specific support services mean for this body. And I'll recognize Councilmember Jenkins for her questions and discussion.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury, and thank you all for the presentation today. But I'm trying to understand, is the intent to be reactive or proactive? Are you waiting till a RCA is presented, then you would review it, check it for accuracy, check it for its story, content, etc.? Or will you draft RCAs for departments when I don't know when the action begins, because some people are calling it a service, but it also appears that it's almost similar functions to audit. You're looking at council, legislative directives and trying to understand what they did. Did this get accomplished? So I guess back to the original question, is it reactive or proactive?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Jenkins. I wish I was able to explain this a little bit better. So there's two things going on. We are using the legislative process reform and looking at the legislative process to find opportunities to improve oversight within that process, but we're looking at your oversight, and so coming up with these, looking at the RCAs and finding out some have good information and some don't, and then identifying opportunities for improvement there. That is the piece that is helping us. Then once we've kind of worked through the legislative process, we'll come up with ideas for improvement. We'll talk to the city clerk about that. We will talk to the legislative body about that to see if you need to make changes to the council rules, if we need to make changes to the legislative process. So that is one aspect of the work we're doing. Doing that work allows us to better understand the legislative process, better understand the things coming before you, so that we can actually develop our services to be very supportive. So we're doing two things at the same time, and I think that's where some of the confusion is coming in. I apologize for not being able to explain that more clearly, but that is what we're trying to do with this, is do some of that human-centered design, that work that we would not normally do if we were just to create ourselves today, and the legislative government structure change had happened a few years ago, and your the legislative process aligned with that government structure change, but we are utilizing this opportunity to help with some of that so that our services can be provided that more align with the services you're looking for.
So it's really sort of analyzing our internal processes, but also, I think I'm hearing also how our legislative directives and subsequently policies are being implemented.
Yes, Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Jenkins. Yes, it's a twofold process. We're going to work our way through the legislative process, helping find those gaps, making improvements, working closely, as I said, with the city clerk and with the legislative body, because you ultimately hold the authority to make changes to the legislative process. We will find those, and by doing that work, we'll be able to figure out what are those level of services when it comes to oversight and policy evaluation that will most help support your functions.
Okay. So I think I'm beginning to understand that piece. But then it seems like there's some overlap with audit as well.
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Jenkins, we are also still trying to figure that out. Audit uses a lens of risk when putting together their audit plan. And it really looks at the how of the administration. Our work will be more at a higher level at the what. So when council passes a policy, we would be set up to, help put some seeds of evaluation into the policy as you're putting it together and adopting it. And then that would set us up to review that policy, say in a couple years, to see if it's meeting your expectations of that policy, if it's the outcomes that you have identified are being met, and then to make sure that who is ever working under those, that policy reports back to the council on a regular basis to provide updates themselves on their work.
And then I guess one last clarifying question. Do you see collaboration, relationships with audit, with the policy research team?
Vice Chair Chowdhury, Councilmember Jenkins, yes, that is one of the things that we're trying to figure out, is how do we work better as an office? Policy and research starts at the beginning. They look into the policy for you. You may set and adopt policy based on that. And then depending on that policy, if it needs to have evaluation on it, we could do that. If it gets into the administration is implementing that policy and there's issues with how that's performing, that's where internal audit can come in and look through a risk-based lens to see if protocols are being followed, if controls are in place. But yes, we have a lot of work to do in trying to figure out how this new office works, but it is definitely things that we've talked about.
Thank you, Ms. Mullen-Johnson, and thank you, Chair Chowdhury.
Thank you, Councilmember. I am not seeing any more members in queue, so thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you so much for spending the time. I'll direct the clerk to file that report. Colleagues, as you can see, we're at 3:47, so I'm going to say if there is no objection, I'm going to postpone our next discussion item to our next committee on November 12th. Okay, no objection. Wonderful. Then we're going to next receive the reports from our standing committees on matters to be considered by the full council this Thursday. And we will begin with Administration Enterprise Oversight from Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury. The Administration and Enterprise Oversight Committee is bringing forward 20 items for approval. The first is a gift acceptance from Versaterm for 2 Minneapolis police employees' registration fees. 2 is a gift acceptance from Minneapolis Board of Business Agents of cost of refreshments. 3 is a bid for liquid sodium hydroxide. 4 is a bid for telecommunications equipment. 5 is a bid for 5th Street parking ramp project. 6 is a bid for a large diameter storm main inspection and televising north project. 7 is a bid for crushing rubble concrete. 8 is a bid for bypass sewage pumps. 9 is a contract with the state of Minnesota for air quality monitoring stations on city property. 10 is contracts for 2024 housing opportunities for persons with HIV and AIDS grant funding. 11 is a contract amendment with Trapeze Software Group, Inc. for additional professional services for the fleet and fuel management software. 12 is a contract amendment with Olson and Nesvold Engineers, PSC, for engineering and design services for 10th Avenue Bridge over the Midtown Greenway. 13 is a contract amendment with Thomas & Sons Construction, Inc. for the Green Central Safe Routes to School project. 14 is contract amendments for the Language Services Pool for interpreting and translation services. 15 is a legal settlement claim of Charles McMillan against the city of Minneapolis. 16 is a legal settlement, Village Homes at St. Anthony Falls, HOA v. City of Minneapolis. 17 is a legal settlement, Alano Society of Minneapolis v. City of Minneapolis. 18 is a legal settlement, workers' compensation claim of Amy Colgrove. And then 19 is a legal settlement, worker compensation claim of Deborah Hubert. And 20 is a legal settlement, workers' compensation claim of Michael Montgomery. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
There are no questions, so then we'll move over to budget presented by its Vice Chair Koski.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. The Budget Committee is bringing forward 3 items to this Thursday's council meeting. Number 1, the Capital Long Range Improvement Committee appointments. Number 2, appointed positions in the City Attorney's Office. And then number 3, an appointed position in the City Clerk's Office. I'll stand for any questions.
I'm not seeing any questions, so then we can move to Business, Housing, and Zoning, presented by its committee's Vice Chair Ellison.
Thank you. The Biz Committee has 14 items for Thursday's council meeting. 1 is approving a liquor license. 2 is the passage of an ordinance that I've authored for right of first refusal to the sale of affordable housing. This is forwarded without recommendation because colleagues had questions, but I've been meeting one-on-one, and I do plan to bring this for approval at full council. 3 is approving liquor licenses, approving liquor license renewals, approving gambling license renewals. 6 is a passage of a resolution approving the city's advisory committee on housing to serve as an advisory board to the mayor and council on housing-related matters. 7 is approving a legislative directive related to proactive rental inspections. 8 is a passage of a resolution approving a contract for the Lake Street Fund with the Graves Foundation. 9 is passage of a resolution approving the decertification of 4 TIF districts. 10 is approving a unit modification to the Portland Village project. 11 is passage of a resolution approving the Livable Communities grants from the Met Council. 12 is a passage of a resolution approving the fall 2024 Brownfield grants. 13 is a passage of a resolution approving the street vacations for Ewing Avenue South. And 14 is passage of an ordinance approving regulations governing cannabis businesses. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
I'm not seeing any questions. I'll note for item number 14, the cannabis zoning text amendment, me and Councilmember Koski are having some conversations with staff that might result in a potential amendment that we will bring forward. We'll keep the body up to date over email. Next, we'll go to Climate and Infrastructure, presented by Chair Cashman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury. The Climate and Infrastructure Committee is bringing forward 7 items. Item 1 is adopting assessments for sidewalk repair and construction for 2023. Item 2 is approving appropriation and revenue for the 5th Street Transit Center. Item 3 is approving appointments to the Bicycle Advisory Committee. Item 4 is accepting a local road improvement program grant from the Minnesota Department of Transportation for the construction of ADA ramps in the Fulton residential project. Item 5 is authorizing a last written offer for parcels related to the new Nicollet construction. Item 6 is levying various Public Works Department special assessments and adopting the assessment rolls. And item number 7 is passage of a resolution calling for the closure of the Hennepin Energy Recovery Center. I'll stand for questions.
There are no questions. Moving to the Intergovernmental Relations Committee, there are no items that are being forwarded to council on Thursday. We received 2 presentations, the 2025 policy positions for the city from our IGR department, and then a second presentation from the Minneapolis Public Schools, providing an overview of its current priorities, challenges, and partnership with the city. Seeing no questions on that one, I will move to Public Health and Safety Committee presented by its Vice Chair Wansley.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury. The Public Health and Safety Committee is bringing forward 6 items. Item 1 is accepting a grant from the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services to focus on recruitment and retention of women in law enforcement. Number 2 is accepting a grant from the Minnesota Department of Health to implement the statewide health improvement partnership grants. And 3 is approving a legislative directive requesting an overview of data analyses and processes used to assign violence interrupters across the city. And with that, I will stand for questions.
There is a question from Councilmember Cashman.
Thank you, Vice Chair Chowdhury. Not a question on this, but just letting everyone know that Councilmember Wansley and I have worked on some changes to the legislative directive and just being more specific and also being a little bit more expansive. So we'll send that substitute legislative directive to you all before Thursday.
Thank you. Next, I'll recognize Councilmember Palmisano.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for that work. Just wanted to thank Councilmembers Wansley and Cashman. I don't receive services of violence interrupters in the 13th Ward, but I certainly support this action. We've had a lot of discussions this term regarding violence interrupters and their contracts and their work and their boundaries, et cetera. And I think it's a good idea to take a deeper look and start identifying metrics for evaluation. How we use them and the level that they're impacting our public safety services should be directly proportional to the amount of funding that we're allocating to this work. So thank you for digging into it, both of you.
Thank you. I echo those sentiments. I will take us to our last committee, Audit Committee, presented by its chair, President Payne.
Thank you, Chair Chowdhury. The Audit Committee met yesterday, and we received and filed the biannual body-worn camera report audit for the Park Police. We received an update on the Policy and Research Operating Procedure. The Oversight and Evaluation Division had their work plan adopted as was presented in Committee of the Whole today. And then we had our standard report of the City Auditor. And there are no items forwarded to City Council since it's the Audit Committee.
Wonderful. I'm not seeing anyone in queue for that, so good work, council members. With that, we've concluded all business to come before the committee today, and hearing no objection, I will declare this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.